All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at a really interesting concept. And it's something that we use every day,
Yeah.
but we might not even realize it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that is abstraction.
Okay. Yeah.
Abstraction, it sounds kind of complicated when you first hear the word, but
Yeah.
it's actually something that's very simple.
Right.
And like I said, we use it all the time. So we're going to be looking at a couple different sources today.
Okay, cool.
And these sources are going to be exploring abstraction from different angles.
Yeah.
And so we're going to kind of be taking a look at, what is abstraction and why should we care about it?
Okay. I like it.
So one of the things that I thought was really interesting was this example of abstraction in maps.
Oh, yeah.
So, when you think about a map,
Right.
it's basically like a simplified version of reality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you've got all these complicated geographical features like mountains and rivers
Yeah.
and roads and buildings and all this stuff. But a map just kind of like boils it all down to the essential information.
It simplifies it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what abstraction is. It's like hiding all the complexity so that we can focus on what's important.
Exactly. And that's really important when we think about something like computer science, because in computer science,
Right.
abstraction is like super crucial.
Right.
Like when you think about how computers work at their very core,
Mm-hmm.
all ones and zeros.
Right.
It's binary code, right?
Right.
But imagine trying to write an entire program just using ones and zeros.
Oh, my gosh.
It would be impossible. Like, you'd go crazy.
You'd be like a nightmare. Yeah.
So that's where programming languages come in.
Right.
So you have these programming languages like Python or Java.
Okay.
And what they do is they abstract away the complexity of that binary code.
Okay.
So instead of having to deal with all the ones and zeros, you can use these like more human readable commands and syntax.
So it's almost like learning a new language, like learning Spanish or French.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't have to think about all the grammatical rules when you're speaking. You just kind of like use the language.
Right. Exactly.
And that's what these programming languages allow you to do.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about when we talk about different levels of abstraction, right? So like even in our everyday language, we use abstraction all the time. Like when you say something like, let's grab some food.
Right.
You're not actually describing like all the intricate steps involved in like,
Right.
getting in the car and driving to a restaurant and ordering food and all that stuff.
You're not giving the algorithm.
Exactly. You're just abstracting it to like this very simple phrase.
Right. And that's kind of how software works too, right?
Exactly.
You've got like this high level code that's like, let's grab some food.
Right.
And then underneath that, you've got all these different layers of code that are actually like carrying out all those specific actions.
Exactly. And that's what makes technology so user-friendly, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have to see all that complexity.
Exactly. And I think another really great example of that is like when you send a text message.
Yeah.
Like you're not actually thinking about all the like radio waves and signals and stuff that are involved in like transmitting that message.
Right.
You're just like typing your message and hitting send.
Yeah, you're just interacting with that simple interface.
Exactly. And that's all thanks to abstraction.
Exactly. Abstraction is like doing all the heavy lifting behind the scenes.
It is. It's like the unsung hero of technology.
It really is, yeah.
And I think it's something that's becoming even more important as our world becomes increasingly complex.
Oh, absolutely.
We're surrounded by all this technology, all this data.
Yeah.
And abstraction is what allows us to make sense of it all.
Yeah, it helps us to manage that complexity.
Exactly. And I think, if we can start to understand how abstraction works,
Yeah.
we can actually start to see it all around us.
Exactly. Yeah, and one of the things that's really fascinating is that like while abstraction is super useful, it's not without its potential downsides, right? Like one of your sources,
Right.
this study on decision making, it talked about how abstraction can sometimes lead to biases or oversimplifications.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like when we rely too heavily on abstract models, we might actually miss crucial details that could like affect our choices.
So it's kind of like a trade-off then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We gain efficiency, we gain ease of use,
Yeah,
but we might be losing some of the nuance,
exactly.
some of the deeper understanding of how things actually work.
It's like if you're using a map to get around a city, right?
Okay.
It's super helpful to have that map. But if
Yeah.
you're only looking at the map,
Yeah.
you might miss out on like all the cool little alleyways and like interesting local spots.
The hidden gems.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's kind of like, finding that balance, right?
Right.
Between like the simplified view and then like the detailed view.
Exactly. And that's I think one of the things to keep in mind when we think about data these days, because we have so much emphasis on dashboards and visualizations
Right.
that condense huge amounts of information into like,
Yeah.
easy to understand charts and graphs.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a great example of abstraction at work in data analysis, right?
Okay.
It helps us to identify patterns and trends quickly.
Yes.
But it's important to remember that those visualizations are just representations of the underlying data.
That's right.
They're not the data itself.
Right. So how do we navigate this world of abstraction then?
Well, I think the key takeaway from all of your sources is that while abstraction is this incredibly powerful tool,
Right.
it's really important to cultivate critical thinking.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to question assumptions.
Yeah.
Delve deeper into that underlying complexity.
Yeah.
Consider multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
Really think critically about the information that's being presented to you.
So abstraction can be a good thing, but we just have to be aware of how it's being used and be aware of the potential downsides. Well, that's a great point to end on.
Yeah.
I think this has been a really interesting dive into the world of abstraction.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think, as we go about our daily lives,
Yeah.
we can start to see abstraction everywhere.
Absolutely.
Maybe next time you open up an app or you look at a data visualization,
Yeah.
you'll see it with a fresh perspective. You'll see all those layers
Yeah.
of abstraction that are making it all possible. So, yeah, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.